Welcome to the Dr. Mudgil podcast. This is episode 121. Wow, time has flown. I am super excited. I'm a huge fan of the gentleman we have on our podcast today. His name is Sam Fribush. He's an amazing organ player, which happens to be my favorite instrument, even though I don't play it. I love listening to it. And Sam is coming out with a new album. It's actually dropping tomorrow. There have been 4 singles that have been released on Spotify. We're going to talk about all of this stuff, but he's an amazing musician. You know, my favorite stuff, I was just telling Sam, is the jazz organ trio stuff. And I stumbled upon Sam, you know, which I used to watch like tons of YouTube videos during the pandemic into the wee hours of the morning. And during the pandemic, Sam actually released with Charlie Hunter and Jeff Clapp, like a double album of, Hammond B3 organ trio stuff. And there's actually the 2 albums. You should check them out. Came out in 2021. Double volume. Volume 1's Riverboat. Volume 2 is The Root, and they are amazing albums. They're still in my heavy rotation. You know, there's amazing covers that you have on there, which literally still blow my mind every time I listen to them. And Sam was actually on my 50th podcast number 50, which was 71 podcasts ago. And we've reunited. Sam actually reached out to me a couple months ago. This new album he's been working on I didn't realize you worked on for a year, man. It takes a long time to put an album like this together, huh?
Yeah.
So just to give everyone a background before we dive in. So the album is called People Please, and it's coming out tomorrow, March 15th. There are 4 singles that have been released. People Please was the first, I think, single that you released from this album, which is amazing. And then Fat Nap was second. When My Baby Gets Home, featuring Xavier Lynn, who's an Atlanta-based guitar player, it was the third. And one came out this Tuesday, which is Make Me a Plate. All are amazing tracks. We're going to kind of get into some of the behind-the-scenes stuff with those tracks, but I do want to share a little bit about what you wrote because I thought it was great. So Sam, he says he's excited to announce the studio album featuring Charlie Hunter and Calvin Napper, who is, I think he's a Greensboro-based drummer, right? Is he from your town?
Winston-Salem, which is just this town over, yeah.
So for some reason, there's an amazing concentration of very talented musicians where you're from. So this album was recorded in March of 2023 at Stephen Price's home studio. And Chris Borner was, I guess he mixed and mastered it or helped you mix and master this. Chris Frasenza did the artwork for the album, which is very abstract and cool looking. Xavier Lynn makes an appearance on the track. He's the Atlanta-based guitar player I just mentioned. And Nick Falk adds cowbell and percussion to a few tunes. I love what you say. You say People Please is about community, taking care of your neighbors, getting our collective shit together, and doing the right thing. Peace and love from Sam. So let's just get into it, man. Just talk to me a little bit about what inspired this album. What I will say, these are like just the 4 songs that I've heard, those are the 4 songs that are available, are just like these just amazing grooves, you know? It's not like it's not the traditional format, like, you know, like head and everyone takes solos and then you come back to the head. This is like just, each song is just like, so there's a long groove and then, you know, you'll take a solo or Charlie will take a solo, but then it just goes back to the groove, man. It seems like it's all about the funk and the groove on this album so far, from what I've heard.
I mean, you nailed it. That's exactly right. That is like the whole concept for the record was like based around groove and funk and Calvin's drumming and guitar and Charlie playing wah-wah guitar and making the funkiest organ trio record that we could at the time. That was the concept. Thank you.
I think you delivered. So, you know, when I was actually reading through this, and it takes a year to put an album like this together, but how long does it take to record it? These are all original tunes, right? So you wrote all of the tunes that are on this album. How many tunes are there? Let's start with that. How long did it take you to write these tunes, over like what period? And then how do you accomplish something of this significance?
Well, it happens a lot quicker than you may think. That was another element of this record that sets it apart from the first one, was that these are original tunes. There was a couple original tunes on the first two releases, but and some of the covers are so far arranged that you can't even really tell that it's a cover. But I really wanted to do this record specifically, all originals. So that was kind of a different process and a new process for me, really, in terms of writing my own instrumental original music. So I worked on it, you know, when I got the idea and I got the recording dates together, I spent at least a good month in my studio. Everywhere I went, I was just kind of taking little voice memos or little ideas. And I even copped a couple things off of Instagram, like just some like things that I had posted as sort of just like messing around that people gravitated towards, and just fleshed out a couple of those ideas. So basically, they're all really small motifs, and a lot of which were kind of like the songs that you hear now were developed a bit more in the studio, but I spent a good amount of time after we recorded because we only spent 2 days in the studio, really a day and a half recording.
To record all
Um,
the songs on the album?
yeah, and
Wow.
there's more songs than you that are even on than that are even on the LP. I think we maybe cut 15 or 16 songs,
Oh wow.
and some of them were just too long to even make it on a 45-minute LP. So I'll let you in on a little secret, but there'll probably be a deluxe edition coming out
Oh sweet.
for digital services that have full length versions and a couple other bonus tracks on it. So I'm excited about that as well. Um,
So just let
but
me just
yeah,
dig into that a little bit, Sam, just because like for people, I
yeah,
mean, for really, because I just want to know personally,
sure.
but I'm sure other people are interested too, who love music. So you said like you recorded for a day and a half, but a lot of stuff happened after you recorded it. What does that mean exactly?
Okay, so after the three of us cut this record, um, it was a bit of me going around my head to my tail sort of where I started putting different keyboards on it. I started putting synthesizers, clavinet, Wurlitzer, synth bass. I kind of I had this feeling that the record was incomplete and needed to be fleshed out a bit more. Um, so I spent a lot of time doing that, and then I brought it to my bandmate Chris Berner, who's an amazing mixing engineer, and we started diving in a little bit on the drum tones, the organ tones, adding some other sonic layers to it. And I sat with that for a little while, and then I kind of sort of had a moment where I came around and realized that the real bread and butter and meat of this record was just the trio. So um, it was probably a good 3 or 4 months of recording extra instruments on it that most of which don't make the record.
Oh, that's interesting, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. Like you, even like "People Please," like the title track, I could tell it's a much longer song. Like just when I was listening to it, because it kind of fades out at like during like a groove. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Like it.
yeah. I think the singles maybe 3.5 or under, and the full length version is like 8.5. And
Yeah.
truthfully, the second half of it is like the funkiest part of the tune.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
like when the groove really drops. But for the sake of singles and the sake of putting together a full piece of work, it made sense to cut it where we did.
So will that like 8-minute version be on the deluxe version that you just alluded
Oh
to?
yeah, yeah. I can't
Oh,
wait for you
nice.
to hear that. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, that's like that's like the best stuff for folks that love this genre, which there's millions of us who do. It's a
yeah. There's plenty of there's one tune that has like sort of a Prince feel to it, like a heavy four on the floor drum kick, and it's basically one chord, and we recorded that for I think 20 minutes long. Um, so the deluxe will also have a version of that that's cut a little bit, but it's pretty amazing the way that we were able to develop this whole thing over a 10-15 minute period.
that's like a very, I mean, just I've been listening to Charlie Hunter for like a really long time. That's like a very Charlie type of thing. I saw him at the Blue Note a couple of years ago, and like it's very similar. Like his songs are very like just very groove oriented. I mean, he's just
Yeah,
a groovy guy. So yeah, I can definitely see like the synergy of your two minds here because they take it to
yeah,
like another level.
yeah. I mean this record is definitely aligned with Charlie conceptually, and most of what I do now is just in terms of like there's no acrobatic playing. We're not doing anything to show off for anyone. We're just playing
It's
as deeply as we can.
It's dude, it's literally so interesting that you said that. You literally took the words out of my mind because when I was listening to, I actually listened to all four tracks while I was working out this morning, like over and over and over again. And like the restraint is actually one of my biggest takeaways of it. It's not, it wasn't like this like crazy like 30-second notes like black, it was just all like just so tasty and in the pocket. And like really I felt like the vibe of each of the songs was to see how deep you can make the pocket rather than like how much you could shred over a groove, and even like the solos were so restrained or like the heads are so restrained. There's like, very, very simple, catchy melodies over like a very deep groove is, kind of like I felt like all the songs like shared that.
Exactly. Like on the nose, man. That's exactly the vibe. And for some people that they might be looking for some sort of virtuosic soloing or something like that, but that's not really the concept of this record. The concept is to like you said, like it's almost like a practice or a meditation in getting as deep into a pocket or a feel as you can. Luckily, Calvin is laying down some of the funkiest stuff
Yeah.
you've ever heard. Um,
Let me ask you a question about that because even like in some of the songs, like I think it was when I was actually listening to People Please again, it sounded like he's so like in the pocket like all the time. Like it almost sounds like he recorded like four bars and it's just looping. That's how tight it is. But that's him for the whole track, right?
yeah, he's just a master. Oh yeah,
He's a
there's no
metronome. He's
loops.
like a
He's a metronome. Yeah, and that's the type of guy that you want if you're in the studio. Um, and also just Calvin's experience from being a gospel musician to playing with Frankie Beverly. Um, I mean, he knows how to play for an audience of people who are expecting to feel and move their bodies, and um, that involves playing at a steady tempo, for 20-30 minutes at a time without moving. It just
yeah. Yeah, it's
it's a
amazing.
thing
And
that
there's like tasty fills and stuff in there, but they're like literally for a quarter of a split second, so it doesn't like mess up the groove.
totally.
Yeah, it's
And
amazing.
I think another important element of this record, and that adds to the funk, is like the use of the wah wah pedal
Yeah.
on Charlie's electric guitar. He was using this a vintage wah wah pedal called a boomerang, and sometimes I feel Charlie creates certain obstacles for himself when he's playing, especially the sixth string, because he's usually playing a hybrid 7 or 8
Mhm.
string guitar. So first off, his electric guitar setup is very heavy gauges. So some of that like acrobatic bending stuff that you hear a lot of young guitar players do is not even possible on his
Yeah.
guitar because the strings are so heavy, which makes it sound more funky and fat and chunky and meaty.
Yeah.
And then the wah wah pedal is like another layer of percussion that is happening that kind of, like you said, adds maybe a layer of restraint or um, just a way of kind of changing your mind to what you usually would play or something like that.
Yeah, can also it's such a like a thick, fat sounding guitar. You can almost
Yeah.
like feel like you can lay down on like the groove, and it just kind of undulates you. It's really, really cool because I mean like his because he's a very rhythmic player in general, anyways. Because he's like playing bass and guitar usually at the same time, so he's like laying the groove while also, and a lot of his good chords, the way he plays chords is very rhythmic, just in his own stuff. But here was like on a different level because it's like the wah is actually adding like this percussive aspect to the groove. So it's like it layers, it makes it so deep, like the depth. You could really like really appreciate the depth. What folks should know though is like all of you are incredibly like virtuosic players. Like if you just anyone were, and they should, everyone should follow you on Instagram and follow you on YouTube and stuff. You're insane, and Charlie's an insane player. Like you guys play crazy shit. Like it's not that you could have easily done that on this album, but it would have just that wasn't the intent, which is it's a much harder thing to do, I think, when you have the technical capability to play like, incredibly fast and in tempo and do these crazy runs. It's restraining yourself from doing that. That's what I really appreciated when I was listening to this. It's like the restraint and the respect for the depth of the groove for someone who's like, like, I'm like a novice musician, but it's, like obviously I aspire to be like you guys. But it's impossible. It's like, like a basketball player want to be like Michael Jordan, any average basketball player. But I do have a sense of appreciation for how hard it is to do that. Because even if I'm like playing with a group of people, your natural temptation is want to kind of like, play a fast run or something. And it's much harder and that's not a lot of folks aren't capable of doing that. But when you're capable of doing that, restraining yourself from doing that, because the groove is much more important than like what you're able to do. That's like a very amazing thing about these 4 songs that I listened to, and I can't wait to hear the rest of it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're hitting the nail on the head, and it's like the 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 three of us are listening so and closely to each other and providing so much space for whatever the other person is doing. Um, it's just like kind of like what I was saying of it, like being sort of like a meditation. It's like that's why a
Yeah.
lot of these tunes I feel like were like when we cut them in the studio were 8-10 minutes long because it was like the next minute was even deeper than the minute before.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of like when I was in like college, like acid jazz was starting to become like a bigger thing. Where like, and this is not like, I mean, there's amazing musicians that were doing that, but a lot of like the musicians that were playing in that genre weren't like professional jazz musicians like you guys, like who had like a real technical aptitude for your instrument, and you could like, you could play classical, you could play jazz, you went to music school, like, you've been playing since you were a kid, but you've studied it. This was kind of like that on like the nth level, it's like that. Yeah, it was because really you could just have it kind of, you could groove to it. It could be playing at like a party and you could groove to it, or it could just kind of be in the background at like a lower volume, and you can literally, like you said, meditate to it because like the grooves just capture you, and you can just like ride the groove, which is awesome, man. So it's a really really amazing album. Everyone should check it out tomorrow. Everyone should download it from Spotify and just put it in your heavy rotation. You will not be disappointed.
Thank
Um,
you.
yeah, it's awesome, man. So let's talk about like touring. You guys gonna take this on the road or what? Like, we're starving for this stuff here in New York, man. We're dying to see
I
some.
know. Yeah. I mean, I have like we started. I think before we started recording, I'm playing a band called His Golden Messenger, and that band tours all over the world, all over the U.S. So that keeps me pretty busy. And I work as a sideman pretty regularly, kind of just keeping myself afloat. And but the trio is my like real my passion, and I'm trying to get it out to as many people as I can and build that up. Um, that being said, uh, you'll definitely. I think the idea behind this new record coming out is that I can get out there and do my own thing a little bit more um, in bigger market areas like New York City and Chicago and San Francisco and Austin, Texas, and um, I have a lot of roots in New Orleans, so I've already kind of go down there and play. But um, I think maybe what's a little bit unique about my thing is that I can pick up musicians in these areas on my own, and so um, you might see me out there playing with like one of your favorite local guitar players or
Mhm.
drummers, and it will be a completely unique experience. It's like there's not really um, sort of a Charlie and Calvin are so busy with like doing their
Yeah.
own stuff that it's not really feasible for us to all jump in the back of a car or a van
Right.
and do a tour like that. But festivals and certain one-off dates for sure.
Well, especially like you guys do play together in Greensboro, right? Like,
Yeah, like locally we have an album release show coming up, which is like it's kind of like one of those exciting things where if the three of us are actually in one place at one time, it's like a kind of a special experience.
and that's going to be the actual trio at the album
Oh
release,
yeah,
which is
yeah.
Saturday. That's Saturday. That's the 16th
Um,
or
April 6th. So I'm
April
not
6th. Okay.
sure. Maybe 3 weeks from this Saturday or something
Awesome,
like
man.
that.
Well, I implore everyone to check it out if you're in the area. I wish I was down there, man. I would be there in a friggin' second to check
It's
that
gonna
out.
be it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be funky. We'll probably sell out, and we'll get some video for you for sure.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I mean, also like Sam does post a lot to YouTube and Instagram. The YouTube videos are longer format, which is awesome for me because I like to see it all.
Yeah.
And also, there's a lot of video footage of your recording session because if on Spotify, I think for like People Please, it's an entire video of like you guys playing, right? Like,
Yeah. We the home studio that we recorded at, they are so fantastic. It's a partner, a man and a wife, and his wife is a photographer, videographer. So
oh,
she was
I didn't
kind
know
enough
that.
to shoot some video. Yeah.
Oh, that's
Um,
cool.
and their house is beautiful, and the shots are, I mean, it's all like 4K, really nice stuff.
Was this the same studio that you recorded the double album at? It looks very
Yeah.
similar. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's probably a little bit. I'm in the same place doing the same thing, but like
Yeah.
maybe with a different outfit on or something.
Yeah, because you're kind of elevated, and then like in the middle, Charlie's like in the middle of the room, and the drummer's off. I mean, from what like the footage looks like,
Yeah.
off to the side. But it was a sort of similar vibe
Yeah.
as all
Yeah.
the other stuff they posted. Yeah, amazing, man. So who do you like? Do you come up to New York on your own? Have you played up here?
Yeah. Not as an organ trio yet, I will say that. But I mean, his golden message, I've played there, a dozen times with different groups over the years.
So how much
Yeah.
every year are you on the road with his Golden Messenger?
Um, well, between Hiss and the other stuff that I do on it's like I've freelance outside of that as well. It's probably about 3 months out of the year.
Oh wow. So what other stuff are
Yeah.
you involved in? Like what other projects? You said you play as a sideman for some folks as well.
It's kind of a rotating cast of a lot of Americana folk, blues, whoever, and it's like it's kind of funky. I mean, it's kind of interesting because it's like my personal stuff is usually a lot more funky than the side call I get, but
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That's a life of a working musician, man. A professional musician like yourself, who's in demand. You gotta.
Yeah, it's all good. I mean, you got to grow this stuff. It all helps. All that stuff helps grow my personal thing
Yeah,
too.
yeah. It's are you familiar with Guthrie Trapp? He's a guitar player in Nashville.
It's ringing a bell.
Yeah, he's like an awesome guitar player, but he's like it's like this fusion of like country, jazz, bluegrass. Like he's a very technical, like amazing, soulful guitar player. But he always says that, he's like, music is music. He's like, it's all the same. It's all the same thing. Like, which is the more you kind of dive into like I'm a big student of music and a big fan of music, and when you're younger and you listen to music, you kind of like at least I was like this. I think a lot of my friends were. You're kind of like, oh no, this is the type of music I like. I like rock or I like jazz, and you don't really open up your ears to like a bunch of other stuff. But the older you get and the more involved you get with music, and the more for folks who play music, the more you start realizing that like good music is just good music. It doesn't matter. Like, the genre makes no difference. It's just, like, good people are good people. Good music is good music. It's, it's all the same stuff.
Absolutely. I mean, there's like one of my Duke Ellington quotes that says there's two types of music: good music and bad music.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, man.
So,
That's right on.
and I mean, it's amazing though. The more you can add to your bag, it's amazing what this music thing, where it will take you. I mean, I played Red Rocks multiple times and been to Australia and Europe multiple times, and places that I never would have dreamed of going, but just through music.
Yeah. Let's dive into that just a little bit, man. So for folks who don't really know much about your backstory, you grew up in North Carolina, right? Like in the town
Yep.
that you went back to. You come from a family. I think you've come from a family of musicians, or at least your dad's a musician.
Yeah, my parents are folk musicians.
Right. And you were obviously involved with music growing up, and you had an aptitude for music. I think genetically you're have an advantage probably with your parents and stuff. But you went to Boston. You went to Berkeley School of Music.
I
Um,
actually went to NEC but right down
okay,
the street. Yeah,
okay,
in
got it.
Boston. Yeah.
So you went to that's the New England Conservatory, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so you studied music there. So your goal, like from a very young age, was to be a professional musician, I imagine, right?
Yeah, I never really remember having being like, yes, for more or less of a
I mean, you never considered like, okay, I'm gonna like, be a dentist or something like that.
No.
Like it was always like you had some, like there was no other real consideration. I mean, you may not have said, "Hey, I'm going to do the stuff you're doing now," but it seems like you were basically like preparing for some kind of life in music somehow. Whether it would be like
Yes,
teaching music or whatever, wherever it took you. So,
for sure.
how long ago did you graduate from NEC?
I think it was 2017
Okay,
is when
so
I
not
graduated.
not that long ago. You're a young dude,
Yeah,
man.
29.
Jeez, God, I'm old enough to be your father, probably.
I know my high school graduation was 10 years ago.
Okay, wow. So the reason why I like want to talk about this a little bit because there's a bunch of you that are younger than you that are out there, and like sometimes it just seems like an insurmountable goal, right? Like, so whatever your goal may be, right? Okay, like for me, I want to go to med school and just do all that sort of stuff. For you,
Right.
you're on this trajectory for music, but a lot of folks can't like wrap their head around like how it happens, like trusting the process. I'm sure like you didn't have a bunch of gigs as soon as you graduated. You had to kind of you had to hustle a little bit, but you were always true to your goal. You trusted the process. Hey, I'm going to do these. I might play these gigs. I'm not super into this particular thing, but it'll help me in some way, just like you said before. Maybe if you could speak to that a little bit, just hopefully some young musicians will be inspired by your story.
Sure. You know this too, man. I mean, the hustle is everything, and the hustle never ends. And um, unfortunately, the music industry is one of the hardest hustles there is. It doesn't certainly doesn't get any easier, and there's no real golden ticket. I think. Um, Now with social media and everything, there's a lot of players who or artists or entertainers who can get big quickly, but what separates the boys from the men or women is that can you make a set list and get on stage and play 2 or 3 hours and entertain an audience with your instrument or with your voice. And yeah, I think that there's a lot of ups and downs that come with this profession and this road. Um, but I think one of the hardest things is actually self motivating. And we don't clock in from 9 to 5, and then when you're off of work, you go home and you open up a bottle of wine and let your hair out. Like you have to get up in the morning and be motivated to sit down at your instrument and practice,
Yeah,
whether you
talk
have a
about that.
gig.
Talk about that a little bit, man. So, like, what is your practice regimen? How has it evolved over the years? Like, are you working on specific things? Do you like practice with a metronome? Like, like
Yep.
what does it take? Like, so my boys are big basketball players, right? They're like
Yeah.
they're young kids, and and you see like these videos. I'm a Knicks fan, so you see these videos of like Jalen Brunson, who's like our star player for the Knicks, and
Yeah.
there's videos of him that resurfaced when he was like 10 years old, and he was like practicing these moves, which he still uses to this day. But it gave a glimpse into like what the behind the scenes, the effort that's required behind the scenes. Like folks only see you on the stage, right? Or they listen to your album on Spotify. Like, wow. But like, what does it take to get there? Like, what do you do when you wake up in the morning? And like, and again, like, you're motivated, you're self motivated to do those things. But like, folks really need to know like how much work you put into your craft.
I mean, exactly. It's exactly like being a basketball player. The fundamentals are everything. It's like the boring stuff that nobody likes to practice is the most important stuff. Um, Playing with a metronome is the most important thing. I mean, it's like if you think your time is good, it could always be better. That's something I've had to learn the hard way over the years. But for me, practicing has always been about actually keeping a clear mind. It's sort of like I don't feel I don't feel it's like we all I think I struggle somewhat with anxiety, and when I practice in the morning or anytime, if I get my hour 2 hours of practice in a day, it helps me to kind of stay calm.
That's therapeutic. Like playing
It's
for yourself.
therapeutic. Yes, thank you. Yeah. Yeah.
So are you practicing like I mean, this is gonna sound so rudimentary and like basic to you, but like, do you practice like arpeggios, or are you practicing
Oh
scales?
yeah.
Are you practicing like I'm thinking this idea and can I play it? Like, I mean, like what are you practicing exactly? Like, what are the fundamentals of playing the Hammond B3 organ?
Yeah, well, I mean, I definitely started as a piano player before the Hammond. So, um, there's a big difference in the touch of the instruments. Hammond is way lighter keys compared to the piano. But I tell all my students this, and I stand by this, is that like arpeggios, scales, um, practicing scales in every key, contrary and parallel motion to a metronome is, if you do that for 15, 20 minutes a day, you just in terms of having awareness on the instrument is like it's like I said, it seems so basic and everybody hates to do it, but like if I warm up for a studio session, I'll sit at the piano with a metronome for 10 or 15 minutes and just play scales
So
and
when you
bump it
say
up.
contrary or parallel, so contrary is like between the beats, parallel is on the beat. Like, what does that
No,
mean exactly?
no, contrary is opposite
Oh, then you go this.
directions.
Okay, I got you. Okay,
Yeah.
okay, I got you.
Both
Got you. Okay,
hands, both
I see.
hands
Okay,
would be
okay,
parallel. And then when you get to
I
a
got
certain
you.
point, you go out and back in.
Right.
Yeah.
That's piano talk.
Piano talk.
Yeah.
I, I mean, for me, I've spent so much time since I've transferred to the Hammond, and even before when I was studying piano, working on left hand specifically technique. Um, and now that I'm like playing the Hammond more and working on funk, I've kind of had to um, study new techniques and create my own techniques for creating really funky bass lines. Because most of the time when we listen to Hammond jazz, we're used to like somebody walking a bass line,
Mhm,
um, like in eighth note fashion, doom, doom,
mhm.
doom, 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 and that's pretty much it. Um, but what I'm doing has usually involves a lot more syncopation along the lines of like a James Brown sort of Bootsy Collins bass line, or even a James Jamerson bass line, or I mean, it's not nearly as complicated as that stuff, but I drew a lot of influence from Chester Thompson, who plays in Tower of Power. He had a really strong staccato left hand. So that's what I've been focusing on practicing basically before the record came out and since then. Um, and that informed a lot of the songs that you hear on the new record.
So you're playing the bass line. So like just I mean, I know a little bit, but just for folks that aren't sure, and even for me. So what like on there's two keyboards. There's basically two keyboards on the Hammond, and there's the foot pedals, right?
Yeah.
Are you playing the bass line with your left hand on that lower keyboard?
Yeah. They're called manuals, two different keyboards. Yeah. The left hand, I mean, both manuals can be set the same, but there's a preset, or not a preset, there's a setting on the lower manual that gives you kind of the beefiest bass tone.
Hmm.
Um, you could set it on the upper manual as well if you wanted to, but there's certain things that you can do on the upper manual that you can't do on the lower manual, such as like percussion. Um, so yes,
So the
usually
what is the percussion exactly on the Hammond though? Is that like the when it kind of like the way it oscillates the note?
no, the percussion is kind of a plucky, kind of like a bebop, a bop, boop, boop, boop sound. That's like
Okay,
it's a harmonic basically that gives the certain notes a higher tack,
got it, got it.
or when you attack it, it creates another layer of harmonic
Is that what
that
the
kind.
drawbars like? You adjust the drawbars. You can adjust that the harmonic
There's
essentially.
Yeah, there's a separate section for the percussion and the harmonic. There's
Okay,
also a separate section for vibrato and chorus. And then you have your drawbars, which can control, or basically you can think of as like EQ.
got it. And then what about the
Yeah.
pedal? Use the foot pedals too.
Yeah, so foot pedals are also have our tones, they're notes. But most of the time a Hammond secret for you is that the foot pedal is used as a percussive element most of the time. Like when I was talking about jazz organists who are walking a bass line, they're usually tapping with their feet on the bass pedals to kind of make it sound more like you're plucking a bass, an upright
Uh,
bass. And what I'm doing a lot of times with when I'm focusing on funk bass playing is kind of mimicking what the kick drum is doing in my left foot.
got it. Got it.
Yeah.
It's a very complicated instrument. It's for
Yeah.
anyone. I'm sure everyone has a sense of that from what you're just describing. You know, it's
And
interesting.
then
Oh, go ahead.
yeah,
Sorry.
and then I think the last element is all of that at the same time is going through the Leslie. So I'm controlling the speed of how slow or fast the Leslie horn spins.
Gotcha. Right, which gives it that whoosh, 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 you know.
Yeah, exactly.
And that does and when Charlie plays, like when he's playing his hybrid, he plays through a Leslie also, right? I would say not on this out, not on the stuff that you guys do together, but
He spent a lot, yeah, a lot of his, I think a lot of his concept for playing hybrid comes from organ players.
yeah,
So yeah, I think his first couple Blue Note records, I don't know if I think for sure a couple were through a real Leslie, but he also had like a Leslie simulator, a pedal.
gotcha.
Yeah.
You know, the one thing I will say is like professional musicians versus amateur musicians, no matter what genre, no matter what like level, I think the one thing which you hit on is actually like staying in time and like impeccably staying in time. And a lot of that does like it comes with practicing with a metronome. And like you said, your timing, you may think your timing is good, but could always be better.
Yep.
There was like I can't remember the name. She was like a female bass player that did a lot of like the Motown stuff. God,
Like
she
from the hit crew.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't
I'm
remember her
but
name. Yeah, I'm blanking too. But she had a great line. She's like, "If you can make the metronome sound funky, like when you're playing along with the metronome, then you know you're doing it right." You know, something along that. It was like something along those lines. But
yeah.
I thought that was so great, you know, because it's like, yeah, that's really what it's all about, you know. And you can only do that if your timing is like fucking money, like just you're just
Yeah.
so in the pocket. Which this album is all about, by the way. It's all about being in the pocket. Everyone's has crazy concept of time.
Yeah, I mean, it's something I continue to work on. I mean, I think Charlie has a concept for the metronome, and excuse me if I butcher it, but basically, where you're playing to it so well that you don't have to focus on that. It doesn't become this clicking thing. It becomes a part of whatever you're doing.
Yeah, very similar to what that the bass player I was just saying said. It's the
Yeah,
same vibe, but I guess that's what exceptional musicians understand that same language of time.
yeah. I mean, it doesn't. It's not that. I mean, it's not some kind of heady thing. It's a very
Yeah,
basic thing. So it's like, um, it's something that like anybody can do, you know.
yeah, but it takes work. That's something that like a lot of people don't want to do. You know, it's like really that boring stuff.
I
There's like
guess. I mean,
do you know a guitarist named Jacques Lejour? Have you ever heard of him? He's like an
no.
Atlanta-based like jazz guitarist. He was like when I went to college in Atlanta in the like 93 or 97. And he
Yeah.
we used to go to this place called the Yin Yang Cafe. He was the guitarist there. Amazing guitarist. I used to take lessons with him, and I never would practice my scales, and it would obviously be very frustrating for him as my teacher. But he'd always say to me, he's like, you can't dunk unless you can hit a layup. These are your layups. Like practicing the scales. I appreciate that now. I wish I put the time in then, but I practice my scales a lot more now. But you know,
Yeah, I mean, it's just I know it's I guess for some folks it's annoying because you want to run before you can walk. But once you get that stuff down, everything becomes more easier. And for me, when I practice, like there's nothing more fun than to practice with a metronome. Like it doesn't matter really what you're playing, you can still be creative and improvising, but as long as like your main focus is locking in with that whatever it is, it's pretty fun.
well, dude, spoken like a man who loves the process. Loves putting the work in. Hey
I
Sam, I don't
guess
want to
so.
keep you here all day, man. But can you just tell folks where they can find you? I know the album comes out tomorrow, but maybe just drop your Spotify, Instagram, your YouTube. You've been posting a bunch, and folks should be following you and watching it.
Totally. Record comes out tomorrow. It's a self-release record. It'll be on all streaming services: Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, Deezer, etc. Um, And just please go to my website, samfrybush.com. There's some beautiful vinyl that is here already. I've already shipped out over 100 of them, and they sound really great. They sound really, really warm. This record in particular sounds really good on vinyl. Um, Other than that, we're doing an album release show on April 6th. And if you're not in the area, yeah, just keep your eyes peeled on my Instagram, Fry, short for Fribush, and I'll keep you posted there. Um, just to kind of like, I don't know, I wanted to say kind of because we've been talking about it. I feel like this record is really good for musicians who are trying to get to learn and get better at this, what we've been talking about conceptually with time and feel. Um, so please just download it and play along to it. Whether you play guitar or saxophone or drums or whatever it is, it's perfect for kind of just locking into something and playing with some musicians who are really focused on a groove. And send it to me, and I would love to hear whatever. There's plenty of room to add your own thing to this.
That's man. It's. I love that you said that because when I was working out and listening to it, I was like, oh man, I can't wait to like play along with this, And it really is. The songs are all amazing. I mean, Sam is just an exceptional talent. I can't believe he's only 29 years old. It's you definitely have been have God has gifted you with amazing talent, and you're sharing it with the world. And I couldn't be prouder to have you on here. And the album is amazing. Everything I've heard from it, and I just can't wait to hear the rest of it. I can't wait to hear those extended release tracks. The 10-minute long versions of these songs that I already love so much. I
Thank
appreciate
you,
you,
man. I appreciate you having me on and all your support. And I'm always here if you want to talk shop, anything. Yeah, my lines are open.
I might hit you up on that, but I'm going to do my best to promote this album too, man. We gotta get as many ears on this as possible, and there will be some happy years once they listen to it. That's for sure.
Right on.
Let's
Thank
get
you.
it.